November 1964. Carson City, Nevada. The sign above the door reads Callahan Saddlery. The paint is cracking at the edges, the kind of crack that does not come from one bad winter. It comes from many winters, and nobody left to care. Where are you watching from? Drop your city in the comments. I want to see how far this story reaches. Thomas Callahan is 68 years old. He has been at this bench since he was 17. 51 years of cutting leather in the same room, under the same low ceiling, with the same smell of neatsfoot oil and sawdust and lamp smoke that his father left behind when he died, and left Thomas the shop and the tools and nothing else. The tools are laid out now. Left to right. The way his father taught him, the way his father's father taught his father, an awl, an edger, a swivel knife, a mallet worn smooth on the handle where 4 generations of hands have held it. Thomas is not working this morning. He is reading a letter. He has read it 7 times already. He will read it an 8th before the day is done. It is not a long letter. The men who write letters like this one do not use many words. They have learned that short words hit harder. The letter is from the bank. Outside on the road, a truck had pulled over. Not broken down, just stopped. The man behind the wheel had been driving since before sunrise, taking the back roads through Nevada the way he sometimes did when a picture wrapped, and he needed a few days of nothing. No cameras, no people who recognized the walk before they saw the face. Just road and sky, and the particular silence of the high desert that reminded him of every Western he had ever made, and why he had loved making them. He had not planned to stop in Carson City. But he saw the sign, Callahan Saddlery, hand-painted, old. The kind of sign a man makes himself because he cannot afford to pay someone else and does not trust anyone else to get it right anyway. John Wayne had seen 100 signs like it. He had watched them go dark one by one across the West for 30 years, each one a small funeral nobody attended. He had told himself he was used to it by now. He was not used to it. He got out of the truck. The bell above the door was the kind that rang thin and high. Thomas looked up from the letter. He saw a big man in the doorway with the morning light behind him, hat in his hand, the kind of man who takes his hat off when he enters a room because someone taught him that, and it stayed with him. "You open?" the man said. Thomas folded the letter. "I am." The big man stepped inside, and Thomas saw the face. You did not grow up in America in those years and not know that face. But Thomas Callahan was not a man who made a fuss. His father had not been a man who made a fuss. He simply nodded and watched the stranger move through the shop the way a man moves through a place when he actually sees it. Wayne walked slow. He ran a thumb along the seat of a finished saddle on the stand nearest the door. Felt the tooling under his thumb. The clean, deep cut of it. He had sat in saddles made by machine for 20 years on studio lots, and he knew the difference the way a man who has eaten good bread knows the difference when someone hands him something pale and soft and wrong. He looked at the wall. Bridles hung in a row, each one hand-stitched, the thread even and tight, the kind of tight that takes not speed but patience. 40 years of patience minimum. He looked at the bench, the tools laid out in their order. He looked at Thomas. "How long?" Wayne said. Thomas knew what he was asking. 51 years in this room. My father 40 before that. Wayne nodded. He picked up a bridle from the nearest hook and turned it in his hands, felt the weight of it, the way the leather moved, supple and dark and honest. "You still taking work?" he said. Thomas was quiet a moment. Then he reached into his shirt pocket and set the folded letter on the bench between them. "Read that," Thomas said. "Then ask me again." Wayne picked up the letter. He read it standing. He did not read fast. When he was done, he set it back on the bench the same way Thomas had set it. Careful. The way you set down something that deserves to be set down gently, even if what it says is not gentle. The bank wanted the building. Not wanted. Required. The word they used was required. Thomas had 90 days. "How far behind?" Wayne said. "Far enough." Thomas looked at the wall of bridles. "The ranches around here went to the catalog 3 years ago. I kept thinking they'd come back. Good leather always brought them back before." He paused. "Before was a long time ago." Wayne said nothing. He walked to the back of the shop. There was a shelf there, high up near the ceiling, the kind of shelf a man builds when he has something he wants to keep but cannot look at every day. On it sat a small wooden box. "What's in that?" Wayne said. Thomas did not answer right away. "My father's last work," he finally said. "Saddle he was making when he died. Never finished it. I couldn't finish it for him, and I couldn't throw it away, so I put it up there and I stopped looking at it." Wayne looked at the box a long time. "How long has it been up there?" 19 years, Thomas said. 19 years. Wayne turned that over in his mind. A man's best work sitting in a box on a high shelf for 19 years because grief does not care about craftsmanship, and time does not wait for a son to be ready. He thought about his own father. He thought about the things he had never said, and the things he had said too late. Every man carries that particular weight, and no man carries it lightly. He pulled a chair from beside the bench and sat down. Not the way a famous man sits, the way a tired man sits. "Tell me about him," Wayne said. "Your father." Thomas looked at him. Nobody had asked him that in a very long time. So he told him. He talked for a long while, about a man who came to Nevada with nothing but a knife and a piece of leather, and a willingness to work until his hands bled, who built the shop board by board, who taught his son not just how to cut leather, but how to think about it. That leather remembers everything you do to it. You cannot rush it. You cannot lie to it. You can only do the work right or do it wrong, and 20 years later it will tell everyone which one you chose. Wayne listened. He did not check his watch. He did not look at the door. He sat with his hat in his hands, and he listened the way a man listens when he understands that the story being told to him matters. When Thomas finished, the shop was quiet. "He sounds like a man worth knowing," Wayne said. "He was the best man I ever knew," Thomas said, "and I let his shop die." "Shop's not dead yet," Wayne said. "I'm sitting in it." Thomas almost smiled. Almost. Wayne stood. He walked back to the high shelf. He looked at the wooden box. "You ever going to finish it?" he said. Thomas was quiet a long time. "I don't know if I can." "You can," Wayne said. "You've been cutting leather for 51 years. You know everything he knew, probably more." He turned and looked at Thomas. "The only thing stopping you is you think finishing it means letting him go. It doesn't. It means you're still talking to him." Thomas put his hand over his mouth and turned to the window. Wayne let him have that. He was a man who knew when not to look. He did not write a check. He was not a man who fixed things with checks when something more was needed. Instead, he sat back down, and he asked Thomas one question. "How many saddles could you make in a year if the orders were there?" Thomas thought about it. 40, maybe 45 if I had a second pair of hands. Wayne nodded. He had 3 pictures in the next 18 months. Each one a Western, each one with riders. The studio bought their tack from a warehouse in Los Angeles. Same as always. Same stamped machine-cut leather, all of it identical. None of it worth remembering. "Not this time," Wayne said quietly to himself. He picked up the bank letter from the bench. He looked at the number. He looked at Thomas. "I'm going to make some calls tonight," he said. You're going to get an order. Big enough to square this and then some. After that, it'll be up to you to do the work and let word travel." Thomas stared at him. "Why would you do that?" Wayne looked around the shop, at the tools laid out in their order, at the bridles on the wall, at the box on the high shelf. "Because your father built something worth building," he said. "And a man who builds something worth building deserves better than a letter from a bank." He settled his hat on his head. "And because I've spent 30 years playing men like him on a screen, least I can do is make sure the real ones don't disappear." He walked to the door. "Finish the saddle," he said without turning around. "He's waiting on it." The bell rang once behind him. 3 days later, a wire came in from a production company in California. An order for saddles. Signed and confirmed. Thomas Callahan stood at his bench and read it twice. Then he climbed the short ladder to the high shelf. He lifted down the wooden box. He set it on the bench and opened it slowly the way you open something you have been afraid of for 19 years. Inside was a half-finished saddle. His father's last cut marks still in the leather. The swivel knife lines clean and deep and sure. The hand of a man who knew what he was doing right up until the end. Thomas picked up his father's mallet. He finished the saddle. It took him 3 weeks. He cut every line the way his father would have cut it. He stitched every seam the way his father had taught him. When it was done, he held it in the lamplight and turned it slowly, and he could not tell where his father's work ended and his own began. That was the point. Callahan Saddlery did not close that winter. It did not close the next winter either. The orders came in from the picture, and then from the men who rode on the picture, and then from the men those men knew. Word travels in a small world of horsemen. A good saddle is its own advertisement. A man who rides one tells another man, and that man tells 2 more. And before long the waiting list at Callahan Saddlery was 8 months long. Thomas hired a young man from a ranch outside Carson City. Taught him everything. The right way to hold the swivel knife. The right way to wet the leather before you tool it. The right way to lay out your tools in the morning. Left to right. The way you set a table for work that deserves to be taken seriously. Thomas worked at his bench until he was 84. When he passed, the young man carried the shop on. And on the wall above the bench where Thomas had worked for 67 years hung one saddle. Dark leather, hand-tooled, the stitching even and tight. A small card below it written in Thomas's own hand. Finished 1964. Started by my father. Completed by me. The only saddle I ever made that took 19 years. John Wayne never spoke publicly about Carson City. He never mentioned the order or the letter or the box on the high shelf. He just made sure the riders rode the right leather and drove back out into the Nevada desert and let the road take him wherever it was going next. He understood something the bank with its 90-day letter never would. You do not save a thing by buying it. You save it by giving it a reason to keep going. And sometimes a reason is just a man walking through a door, sitting down, and asking to hear the story of someone's father. If this story found you, pass it on. There is a craftsman somewhere near you still doing it the slow way, the right way. They deserve to be found before the sign goes dark.